It's been a while, hasn't it? Hi everyone and welcome back. Today I wanted to take some time and go over the various projects that are going on with the B6 specifically. Now I know I had said that I wanted to do a video on the L1's tender, but unfortunately Mother Nature decided that it was going to rain today, so I am not able to film outside and go over the project list on that. But we've been really busy working on the B6. There's a lot being done to it, especially in the cab area. I got most of the ash pan done. I'm waiting on a couple parts. And in the meantime, I went and I pulled the cab floor out on the fireman's side and in the middle, and then I'm working on the cab roof. So I wanted to take some time and show everybody kind of where the project is at the moment and go over a couple things. So, as I've stated before in a couple other videos, the ash pan interior is just about done. I'm waiting on the sides that flare out to get rolled. I can't roll them here because the roll can't roll 1/4-inch material that the ash pan ends are made out of. So what I want to do, it's really difficult for me to get up inside with the camera facing me, so I'm going to take the camera up inside and show everybody, and I'll be behind it. But for those that haven't seen or haven't kept up, the doors on the ash pan work. They're really smooth now. They open and close with the handles. So that whole project is wrapped up and it came out really, really good. But I want to show everybody kind of what the finished product is. A lot of the stuff we deal with is, it takes a lot of time to get all the rust out of things and get everything painted and put back together so it looks presentable. And that's where a lot of our hours get wrapped up in. Is there's a lot of stuff that I don't have the time to upload because not much is getting done. So it might take me a couple hours to make a part or to break some rust apart, but for you as a viewer, it's not really that interesting to watch me break rust apart for a couple hours. So sometimes it takes us a lot longer to get things looking good than you think. So this is what the ash pan looks like finished on the inside. I spent a lot of time remaking pieces like this angle here and this angle here are brand new. I took all these apart. This was an entire back piece that came off. Each side had to be removed and put back together. And you can see, if I turn up here, change my light a little bit, all of the hardware up there is new when I put everything back together. This deflector piece I had to sandblast and paint, and then the other side as well. And fitting these up was more tricky than I thought. So this took a lot of time, but if we turn to the other side, you can see that this whole inside is done. The other side's done as well. We're going to go show everybody in a second. There's another piece I fabricated and put on, but this is the other side. So this pan is completely painted, minus the bottom of the door, but the whole thing is ready to go. So this is where we're at. Alright, so we're on the fireman's side of the locomotive, and one of the big pieces that was missing was this angle that the ash pan comes to. Now when we got the engine, this was not on, and part of my theory as to why this wasn't on is because there's a really thin spot in the back where I think it might have caught something and broke, either in transit or before it was retired, or whatever happened, I'm not exactly sure, but when we got it, it wasn't on. So sometimes what was cool about this was it's a mirror image of the other side, so I had the other side. So all I did was grab a piece of metal, I clamped it to the other side, traced it out, got the holes lined up, and then I had another one. So this was really nice, and we don't always get this, but sometimes on the locomotives, one side's just mirrored. And when you think about it, it would make sense back in the day because that would be less drawings you'd have to do because they just take the drawing and mirror it, and then they'd have both of them. So the next step with this is, you can see I have the wells back on too. The other side's done, the engineer side as well. This needs pushed up a little bit, but you can see kind of there's a gap here. This should match up pretty close, and when I go to put it up, I'll push it up with the jack and get it nice. And then I'm waiting on the actual pan here that goes on the outside. So once those come back, I'll put them on, and then the ash pan's completely done. So in the meantime, while I wait for parts, I started something else, and we're going to go check that out right now. So what I ended up doing was moving up to the cab of the locomotive, and we started work on that. The reason behind that is our carpenter is going to start working on getting the wood for the cab ready to go. And the thought process was, I don't want to be working on something else and hold him up while I could be back here getting everything ready so he can come in, put a new floor in the cab, and we can keep going. So what I ended up doing was I started doing the floor of the cab, which kind of evolved into the fireman side floor, and we'll eventually probably do the engineer side as well. But there's a lot of spots in the cab where the cab's starting to rot away, and we have to repair a lot of things. And the floor of the cab was, with all the coal and everything going over it over the years, it was in rough shape. So we decided that we're going to get a new one made. We're going to put it in. So I'm going to go up top on the scaffolding and kind of zoom in with this because I can't be in the shot and show everybody. But I'm going to show everybody kind of what was involved in taking the floor out and where we stand with that. So this is where we're at with the cab. You can see there's no floor on it right now. And I pulled that up last week. There's also right here, you can see 3 holes. Those are where the pins go to mount the locomotive to the tender. There's usually a plate that goes across. That was removed last week. And I removed the cab floor, the main cab floor, and then I also had to remove the fireman's side floor. Now you can imagine how bad that floor was. The other thing that we had to do is there's 4 pipes for the injectors that we had to remove as well. They came up, they would have come up 2 on the side and 2 on that side, and you can see actually where the pipes for them keep going when they're connected. Those had to be removed to get the floor out. There were holes in the floor for them, but I had to remove them to get them out. They'll be put back in, of course, but this is where this project's at. One thing I wanted to show everybody, if you look over here, you can kind of see the state of the cabs. Now with all the, again, the coal really ate a lot of this away, but you can see all the rust that we have to replace. And the interesting thing is, what kind of fascinated me about this side of the cab is that we were able to get the floor out without having to lift the cab up. Now, so most of the time they'd put new floors in or replace the floor. You'd have to lift up this whole cab off the engine, but we got lucky enough where we didn't have to do that. Here is a shot of the engineer side. You can see the valves for the injectors. The handles for the injectors are on this side, which is those right there. And this is kind of what the floor looked like. It was a little more tricky to get out. You can see there's an angle on the floor here in the back. Then there's an angle up here. And this side actually looks much better than the fireman's side did. The fireman's side is pretty bad. And you can see the angles in front of us. That's what is left from the fireman's side that I have to replace. So this is where this stands. Now the next part we're going to do is I actually started the roof. So I will meet everybody on top of the engine and we'll go from there. So this is the engineer's side, and you can see underneath this is a channel, the one I was talking about, that isn't rusted through on the inside yet, but will be. So you can see all this here is, and I'm flicking some out, all this is rust holes that need patch. So I'm going to have to do a big roof patch on this one on this side, and it goes all the way back, and you can see there's an opening there. The problem is the rainwater, when it came down, underneath that's the channel. So it would have sat in that channel. So I know that the inside of that channel is no good. If I turn our attention over here, so this is where the cab vent would go. And there's a handle right there that you'd pull back, and it would open the vent in the summer to help cool the cab. This one, you can see these are where the channel, the angle would have been for the channel. And what's interesting is when you do work like this, so before I started this, I could have sworn that this cab was okay, but if you look back there, once I pulled the angle off, it pulled all the rust off, and now there's holes in the cab. So that's going to have to be strengthened because this is the channel where the vent goes, so it needs to be a little bit more structural. So this side looked all right, but we will see. Both the angles are going to need replaced. The actual door itself is okay. And then this is what I worked on today, getting that channel down. So it involved cutting all these rivets out and pulling the channel off. And that's what we've been working on, is this. So the last update I wanted to give everybody was on the status of the stack. This has been off for a while. If you haven't seen any of the videos lately, we removed this a little bit ago, and we're in the process of kind of piecing it back together. I'd like to do a video on that because this is cast, so it's interesting as well. But one thing we did is we were able to find almost all the pieces that were missing from this, but there was still one large piece that was missing. So what we decided to do is we actually used one of the pieces that was broken and we added a small piece to it, and we're going to get that cast, so it gives us a template and a little bit bigger piece than what we need to kind of cut to fit the missing piece, so we'll be able to get that nice angle that this stack has, and it'll look really good. Once we get the piece back, we're going to weld it with stick with a nickel alloy rod, so it will be as strong as it can be, and it'll look really, really good, and in the end result, you won't even be able to tell that it was broken in the first place. That's going to be fun to show everyone. So that's all we're at with the B6 right now. The next video that I'll probably have up is going over the L1 tender, which is outside, which we're going to get started this week. And the H10's tender needs a little bit of button-up work, and I can show everybody that. But that's where we're at in the shop. Thank you for joining me, and have a good one.